Tonight with two ingenious solutions to Florida's ongoing battles with wild reptiles. And for that, we take you to opposite ends of.
Deep in the heart of South Florida, the Everglades was once a sanctuary of quiet beauty. A place where water crept slowly across endless plains of sawgrass, where herons glided across open skies, and where the mornings echoed with the soft calls of swamp creatures. To locals, this place felt alive, breathing, moving, whispering its ancient rhythm. But over the years, the heartbeat of the Everglades began to weaken. The calls of birds weren't as frequent. The rustling in the bushes faded. An eerie calm settled over the marsh. People didn't understand what was happening, but they could feel something wasn't right. The truth revealed itself slowly, and when it finally did, it shook the region to its core. A new ruler had emerged in the Everglades, a silent hunter whose presence changed everything. Burmese pythons. Not native to Florida. Not part of the ecosystem. But once they slipped into the swamp, they spread like wildfire, consuming nearly everything in their path and turning one of America's richest ecosystems into their personal kingdom. How they got here is a story that still stirs debates today. These snakes originated thousands of miles away in Southeast Asia, where they dominated jungles and rivers as apex predators. In the 1970s and 80s, they entered the U.S. through the exotic pet trade. Pet stores displayed them proudly, selling baby pythons to anyone fascinated by their gentle behavior and beautiful patterns. Small, harmless, and surprisingly calm, at least at first. But what most new owners didn't realize was that Burmese pythons don't stay small for long. They grow fast, too fast. Within a few years, that docile 12-inch pet becomes an aggressive, muscular, 15-foot predator. Owners panicked. Some didn't know who to call. Others were too afraid of getting in trouble. So instead of turning them over to authorities, they drove to canals, swamps, and the edges of the Everglades and released them into the wild. Meanwhile, reptile breeders kept dozens, sometimes hundreds, of young pythons in private facilities. And all it took was one disaster to change everything. In 1992, Hurricane Andrew slammed into Florida, ripping apart homes, facilities, and entire neighborhoods. Among the buildings destroyed were reptile breeding centers containing large collections of pythons. Thousands escaped into the Everglades. They mixed with the released pets, survived, reproduced, and multiplied faster than anyone expected. The perfect storm had begun. The Everglades, with its warmth, moisture, endless hiding spots, and abundance of prey, became the ideal habitat. The pythons flourished, laying over 100 eggs per clutch, spreading deeper into the marsh, and silently rewriting the natural order. Today, scientists estimate tens of thousands of Burmese pythons roam South Florida. Some experts think the number may be even higher. The food chain collapsed. Rabbits, raccoons, birds, even deer populations dropped by more than 90% in some areas. What was once a thriving ecosystem became a silent empire ruled by a predator that didn't belong there. The invasion didn't stop at the swamp. Residents started spotting snakes on roads, under cars, in barns, and even in backyards. One family found a python inside their chicken coop. Another watched a massive one glide across a driveway like it owned the place. Fear swept through communities. People demanded answers, solutions, anything to stop the decline. But every strategy failed. The Everglades was losing its battle. And humans seemed powerless. As python sightings increased, Florida officials jumped into action. Hunters, wildlife officers, and volunteers formed a united front. The goal was simple: stop the spread before it was too late. The first major effort was the Python Challenge, a statewide hunt offering cash rewards for each captured snake. Videos circulated online of hunters dragging massive pythons out of the marsh. Crowd interest skyrocketed. It became a thrilling spectacle. But the snakes were always a step ahead. Their camouflage was nearly perfect. Their behavior unpredictable. Their hiding spots endless. Even the best trackers could walk inches away from a python without noticing it. So scientists switched strategies. First, they brought in python-sniffing dogs, Truman, a black Labrador with an unstoppable nose, and Eleanor, a lightning-smart golden retriever. Trained to detect the faint scent of python skin, they pushed through dense brush like four-legged detectives. They found snakes faster than humans could ever dream of. The media praised them. Their success gave people hope. But danger limited their work. The swamp swarmed with alligators, panthers, deep mud pockets, and unpredictable terrain. Handlers couldn't risk taking dogs into the most dangerous areas. Their success was real, but their reach was limited. Next, scientists tested scout snakes. They captured male pythons, attached GPS trackers, and released them to locate large breeding females. The idea was brilliant. Males naturally wander in search of mates, so they unknowingly led teams straight to nests filled with eggs. And for a while, it worked. But males didn't always travel far. Some vanished into deep, remote regions where GPS signals failed. Others moved erratically, making them unreliable guides. Once again, the Everglades reminded everyone that nothing came easy. Then came the drones. High-tech machines scanned the wetlands from the sky, searching for heat signatures. Early mornings seemed perfect. The snakes warmed their bodies in sunlight, making them stand out against the cool ground. But warm rocks, mud patches, and other animals created false signals. Drones helped, but not enough. Every attempt brought progress, but nothing slowed the invasion. Every year, the pythons gained more territory. And every year, humans lost a little more hope. Behind closed doors, scientists knew the old approaches weren't working. They needed something new, something bold, something that could navigate the Everglades with the same ease as the snakes themselves. Then came the idea no one saw coming. Robotic rabbits. Scientists had discovered something unusual. Marsh rabbits, once common in the Everglades, were disappearing rapidly. Yet pythons still reacted intensely to their scent. The snakes saw marsh rabbits as premium prey. Researchers initially tried using real rabbits in cages, but backlash from animal rights groups stopped them immediately. The rabbits were already struggling as a species. Using them as bait felt wrong. So engineers asked the groundbreaking question. Could they build a machine that acted exactly like a marsh rabbit, without risking any real animals? And thus, the Robotic Rabbit project was born. At first, the idea sounded bizarre. Some researchers laughed. Others doubted it would work. But they kept building, tweaking, perfecting. After months of testing, the first robotic rabbits were released into the twilight marsh. Then the waiting began. And the swamp didn't take long to respond. One evening, as the sky darkened and the swamp fell quiet, a large python slid out of a sawgrass patch. It flicked its tongue, testing the air. The robotic rabbit twitched its leg. The scent pad warmed. The machine mimicked fear. In a flash, the python lunged, wrapping its body around the decoy with crushing force. The camera inside shook violently as the snake coiled tighter, convinced it had caught real prey. When the team reviewed the footage, they were stunned. The robot held together. The python behaved naturally. The GPS recorded everything. The camera captured the snake's full ambush. For the first time ever, scientists witnessed a python's attack sequence from inches away. They saw how it approached, what triggered the strike, and where it retreated afterward. One simple robot changed everything. This wasn't just bait anymore. It was a window into the secret life of one of the world's most elusive predators. The team expanded the project quickly. They deployed over 40 robotic rabbits across the Everglades, each tucked into strategic hotspots, tree islands, marsh trails, hidden water paths, and deep sawgrass. Within the first month, the results were explosive. Dozens of pythons attacked the robots. Some dragged them into burrows. Some coiled for minutes at a time. Every movement fed into the system. The real breakthrough came from the GPS data. The rabbits didn't just record attacks, they mapped python routes. Over time, patterns emerged that stunned researchers. The pythons weren't wandering randomly. They were using hidden travel corridors, invisible highways through the swamp. Researchers fed all this information into advanced machine learning systems. In weeks, the program began predicting python behavior with shocking accuracy. But the Everglades wasn't going to surrender easily. The swamp pushed back. Robots malfunctioned in extreme heat. Batteries drained faster than expected. Heavy rain buried decoys in mud. Alligators attacked the robots, dragging some away and crushing others. Raccoons chewed on sensors. Moisture short-circuited circuits. Sudden storms swept rabbits into deep water. Even the snakes adapted. Some pythons grew suspicious. They circled the decoys instead of striking. Others avoided areas where robotic rabbits had been attacked before, as if learning from their mistakes. Human teams struggled too. Chest-deep water, burning heat, constant insects, and unpredictable wildlife made every deployment exhausting. On top of that, critics questioned the project's cost and practicality. Some called the rabbits toys. Others claimed they were a waste of taxpayer money. But despite setbacks, one thing became clear. The robotic rabbits were working. They captured data no drone, no dog, no trap had ever revealed. Even the failures taught scientists more about the swamp's unpredictable nature. Every broken rabbit led to an improved design. Every attack recorded opened new opportunities. Little by little, the Everglades began giving up its secrets. The robotic rabbit project changed everything. Capture rates improved. Hunters became more efficient. Scientists gained access to behaviors and travel paths previously invisible to humans. Public opinion began to shift. People saw undeniable results. Critics who mocked the project started admitting its importance. More importantly, the experiment sparked conversations on a global scale. If robotic decoys could track invasive pythons, could similar technology protect endangered species? Could it monitor predators in remote jungles? Could it detect poachers sneaking through wildlife reserves? The Everglades transformed from a battleground into a laboratory for the future of conservation, where science and nature worked together to restore balance. But one thing remained clear: success in the Everglades never lasts forever. The swamp changes. The predators evolve. The fight continues. And while robotic rabbits represent hope, the war against the python invasion is far from over. As the Everglades continues to shift under the weight of an invasive giant, humans are learning more, fighting harder, and adapting faster than ever before. Technology may finally be giving us a chance to reclaim the swamp. But one question remains. If a small robotic rabbit can challenge one of the world's most powerful snakes, what else could we use it for? And what other secrets might the wild be hiding? Just when Florida's biologists thought they finally had a strategy that could push the Burmese pythons back, nature introduced a twist no one expected. Deep inside the Everglades marshes, motion-sensing cameras caught shadows sliding beneath the water, shadows too large to belong to any python. At first, researchers assumed it was just a misidentified gator or a harmless anaconda released by an illegal pet owner. But when the footage was enhanced, the truth became clear. These weren't pythons. These were hybrid giants. Part reticulated python. Part Burmese python. A superbreed no scientist wanted to believe was real. Bigger. Faster. Smarter. Able to swim miles without stopping. And worst of all, capable of learning from failed hunts. The Everglades' greatest nightmare had just evolved. While the robotic rabbits were pulling pythons out from the shadows, something equally terrifying was happening across the swamp, something you couldn't see unless you knew where to look. The marsh grass? Shorter than last year. The water? Murkier, with fewer insects dancing on its surface. The tree islands? Becoming strangely quiet. Every species, big or small, was disappearing. The raccoons were almost gone. The marsh rabbits that once dotted the landscape had vanished. Even the powerful bobcats were starving. The python invasion wasn't just a wildlife crisis anymore, it was an ecological collapse, unfolding silently, inch by inch, mile by mile. And scientists feared that if the Everglades fell, that fall would echo across the entire American ecosystem. The robotic marsh rabbits were originally simple lures, metal bodies shaped like prey, equipped with GPS and a heat signature. But when the hybrid snakes appeared, their old programming wasn't good enough. So researchers turned to something daring. They upgraded the robots with machine learning. And the most shocking change? They started working in groups, moving like a herd, communicating through short-distance signals, coordinating their lures to trap multiple pythons at once. The hunters weren't alone anymore. Now they had a robotic army. The python hunters, once confident, fearless, hardened by years in the swamp, found themselves pushed to the edge. Some returned after a long night with shredded gear, their boats clawed by monsters lurking beneath the water. Others refused to enter certain zones after hearing unexplainable movements in the sawgrass, something too big to be a python, too silent to be an alligator. Whispers spread among the hunting teams about a python so large it could swallow a full-grown deer whole, a python locals were calling the ghost of Big Cypress. No one had seen it. Only its tracks, massive impressions left in mud, like a creature dragging an entire tree behind it. The hunters believed that if this one snake wasn't captured soon, it would become the progenitor of a new superbreed. As the crisis grew, researchers made a discovery that changed the entire mission. Using drones, underwater scanners, and the robotic rabbit signals, they detected something terrifying. A network of underground caverns hidden beneath the Everglades, created over thousands of years by water flow. These caverns formed the perfect breeding ground, dark, deep, humid, unreachable by humans. Inside these natural tunnels, dozens of female pythons were nesting. Hundreds of eggs. Thousands. Maybe tens of thousands. The Everglades wasn't just invaded. It had become a factory, producing wave after wave of predators that were spreading beyond Florida, toward Georgia, Alabama, and even the Carolinas. If something wasn't done immediately, the entire southeastern United States could be overrun. Armed with the knowledge of the hidden caverns, Florida's top environmental teams designed one final plan, a mission so risky most volunteers were warned they might not return. And for the first time, they would enter the caverns. A place where no human had ever stood. A place where the python reign was absolute. This wasn't a hunt anymore. It was a war for survival. The teams moved cautiously, stepping into the dark, waterlogged caverns hidden beneath the swamp. The air was thick with humidity, and the smell of decaying vegetation was strong. Flashlights barely pierced the gloom. Every sound, drip, splash, or rustle echoed ominously, as if the cavern itself was alive. The robotic rabbits led the way, crawling over roots, gliding across shallow pools, and sending live GPS and video feeds to the scientists above. Every twitch of a limb, every subtle movement, was monitored. Suddenly, a python struck. A female over 20 feet long had wrapped around a robotic rabbit. The camera captured every coil, every flick of its tongue, every ripple of muscle as it attacked. But the rabbit held, and the scientists cheered silently. For the first time, humans could study the largest, most dangerous snakes in their natural lair without being in mortal danger themselves. This was the breakthrough that could finally turn the tide. With every encounter recorded, patterns began to emerge. The pythons weren't scattered randomly, they were organized. They had territories within the caverns, clearly divided among females and the largest males. There were corridors, resting chambers, and even small water basins that acted as hunting grounds. The robotic rabbits became mobile mapping devices, revealing the invisible structure of a secret python empire. Scientists could now predict where snakes would gather, where eggs would be laid, and where juveniles would hide. What had seemed like a chaotic invasion was actually a meticulously organized network of predators. Even with the caverns mapped, one threat loomed larger than anything the team had faced: the hybrid pythons. These snakes, a mix of Burmese and reticulated DNA, were smarter, faster, and more aggressive than normal pythons. They had learned to avoid human hunters, to strike only when advantageous, and to use the swamp's terrain as camouflage. The team realized that every new generation could be stronger than the last, with survival instincts refined by decades in the wild. The robotic rabbits became their only tool to study these hybrids safely. Without them, researchers would have been blind, forced to guess at the movements of a predator that could kill a human in seconds. Amid the chaos, the scientists noticed something surprising. Not all swamp creatures were vanishing. Certain species, alligators, herons, and even certain fish, seemed to adapt to the presence of the pythons. Alligators, for instance, avoided the areas where hybrid pythons hunted, creating a kind of natural barrier. Some birds altered nesting patterns, building safer routes that kept them out of reach. By observing these behaviors through the robotic rabbit's cameras, scientists realized they weren't just fighting a predator, they were watching an entire ecosystem adapt in real time. This insight opened a new path. Instead of only removing snakes, the team could use the natural behavior of other species to guide their strategies. As the robotic rabbits became more effective, the swamp itself seemed to resist. Thick rains flooded areas overnight, carrying robots downstream. Hurricanes sent equipment flying into trees or sinking into mud. The hybrid pythons were also learning. Some avoided robots entirely, while others attacked only briefly, leaving the decoys untouched to confuse scientists. Every success was temporary. Every victory was hard-won. The Everglades reminded everyone that this was not a war humans could ever fully control, it was a contest of patience, adaptation, and observation. The data fed AI systems that could predict python activity with unprecedented accuracy, allowing hunters to strike with precision. For the first time in decades, the human side was gaining the upper hand, not through brute force, but through knowledge and technology. The next challenge arrived with the breeding season. Female pythons became highly mobile, seeking mates, and laying eggs in hidden locations. This was the most dangerous time for humans and machines alike. Robotic rabbits were deployed near known breeding corridors. Some were even equipped with heat sensors to detect nesting sites beneath leaf litter. Footage revealed something extraordinary: snakes protecting nests from intruders, hunting in shifts, and even using decoy eggs to mislead predators. By observing these behaviors, scientists could safely locate and remove eggs, preventing thousands of hatchlings from entering the swamp. This strategy had never been possible before. Months into the project, a profound realization emerged. The robotic rabbits were more than tools, they were teachers. The Everglades, once a mysterious, unknowable wilderness, was slowly revealing its secrets. Every attack, every retreat, every subtle movement of a python was a lesson in predator behavior, ecosystem dynamics, and survival strategy. Scientists realized that to control invasive species, they couldn't just react, they had to study, predict, and adapt. And in doing so, humans could finally start restoring balance to a fragile ecosystem. The hybrid pythons were proving to be the swamp's most cunning inhabitants. Scientists observed through robotic rabbits that these snakes weren't just larger, they had developed advanced hunting tactics. Some used camouflage so effectively that even motion-sensitive cameras initially failed to detect them. Others coordinated strikes with astonishing precision, showing behavior previously unknown to herpetologists. For the human teams, it became a test of patience and intellect. Every new encounter was a puzzle. Every failed capture taught them how clever these snakes had become. And every successful strike, thanks to the robotic rabbits, felt like a hard-earned victory in a war they couldn't afford to lose. One night, a robotic rabbit captured footage that stunned the scientists. A hybrid python had coiled around a juvenile alligator, preparing to strike, but the alligator fought back fiercely. For nearly 10 minutes, the swamp seemed frozen in tension as predator and prey battled. This was a rare glimpse into the survival instincts of the Everglades' other apex species. It reminded the researchers that while pythons were invaders, the swamp still had creatures capable of fighting back, and that these encounters shaped the ecosystem in ways humans were only beginning to understand. As months passed, the robotic rabbits themselves evolved. Scientists upgraded them with new AI algorithms, allowing them to adapt in real time. If a python approached cautiously, the robots could twitch or change direction, mimicking natural rabbit behavior. If an area was deemed dangerous, the robot would retreat safely, sending alerts back to the team. This evolution made the robotic rabbits more than tools. They became active participants in the battle, capable of making decisions the researchers couldn't. And every successful encounter fed new data into the AI, improving predictions and strategies across the swamp. The robotic rabbits unveiled patterns nobody had suspected. Pythons had favorite zones where they preferred hunting or resting. Some preferred open water, while others used dense sawgrass as hidden corridors. Most surprisingly, the rabbits discovered that snakes used environmental features, fallen logs, shallow pools, and tree roots, to navigate like secret highways. This insight allowed humans to anticipate python movements with unprecedented accuracy. The Everglades, once an unknowable wilderness, was slowly revealing its hidden order. The breeding season intensified the battle. Female pythons moved with stealth, seeking mates, while males patrolled territories, guarding nests from intruders. Robotic rabbits equipped with thermal sensors detected heat signatures from hidden egg clusters, allowing teams to safely remove thousands of eggs before hatching. This became the turning point in the war. Controlling reproduction slowed the exponential growth of the population, giving the Everglades native species a chance to recover. Months of robotic rabbit deployment provided more than just immediate results. Researchers learned to interpret behavioral patterns, which rabbits attracted more snakes, how environmental changes affected activity, and the exact conditions that triggered strikes. This data was fed into machine learning systems, allowing predictive models to forecast python behavior under varying conditions. The Everglades, once a realm of mystery and danger, was gradually becoming readable and predictable, a victory born from the synergy of nature and technology. While the robotic rabbits were essential, the human teams also adapted to the swamp's unforgiving conditions. Hunters learned to recognize subtle signs of python presence, bent reeds, displaced water, and tracks in mud. Meanwhile, engineers developed waterproof coatings, stronger batteries, and better heat-resistant circuits for the robots. Every encounter, whether success or failure, refined the strategies and technology, making each expedition smarter than the last. As news of the robotic rabbits spread, public perception began to shift. Skeptics who once called the project a gimmick now acknowledged its importance. Local communities, once fearful of snakes invading their backyards, began to understand the value of technology in protecting the ecosystem. Schools, environmental groups, and volunteers joined in, expanding the reach of the project. The robotic rabbits were no longer just machines, they had become symbols of hope and innovation. Despite progress, the hybrid pythons remained a looming threat. Footage revealed behaviors that suggested these snakes were learning from each other, avoiding areas where robotic rabbits had previously been struck, and developing more sophisticated hunting strategies. The scientists realized that they were in a continuous arms race. Every adaptation of the robots prompted a new tactic from the snakes, and every new python behavior demanded fresh insights from humans. The battle for the Everglades was far from over. Even in the midst of danger, there were signs of hope. Rabbits, birds, and other small species began to return to areas clear of pythons. Nesting sites stabilized. Juvenile alligators thrived in zones free from invasive predators. The robotic rabbits, combined with careful human intervention, were slowly restoring balance. The Everglades, though still under threat, was no longer entirely dominated by invaders. It happened on a humid, moonlit night. One robotic rabbit, crawling along the water's edge, triggered an alert. The camera feed showed a shadow larger than any python the team had ever seen. This was no ordinary snake. Its body was thick, its length unbelievable, and its movements precise. For years, locals had whispered about the ghost python, but now it was real, and it had been captured on live video. The team watched in awe as the hybrid giant coiled around the robot, testing it cautiously before striking with full force. Every detail, muscle contraction, tongue flicks, and strike trajectory, was recorded. For the first time, humans could study a top predator in its absolute prime, without risking life or limb. With the giant hybrid tracked, the researchers deployed additional robotic rabbits to follow its movements. The snake's patterns were staggering. It traveled miles nightly, used hidden water channels, and returned to specific resting spots with clockwork precision. By mapping this individual, the team gained insight into the behavior of the largest predators in the Everglades, providing data that would help predict the movements of future hybrids. This knowledge was crucial. Knowing where the largest snakes traveled meant they could target breeding females and nests strategically. Using lessons learned from the giant, the team developed coordinated field operations. Robotic rabbits acted as decoys while human teams and scent detection dogs surrounded key zones. The strategy worked. Dozens of pythons were trapped without harming other wildlife. The combination of technology and traditional hunting created a synergy never seen before in wildlife management. Even hybrid pythons, previously considered nearly untouchable, were forced to retreat or relocate, giving native species a chance to recover. Footage from the robots revealed something unexpected. Pythons displayed signs of problem-solving and memory. Some hybrids avoided areas where decoys had been attacked before. Others used environmental camouflage with remarkable precision, blending into mud, reeds, or tree roots. Scientists realized they were witnessing cognitive behaviors in action, an intelligence honed over decades in a challenging environment. This insight would redefine how humans approached invasive species management. As the robotic rabbits revealed more about python behavior, researchers noticed another shift. Other swamp species began adjusting too. Alligators avoided certain zones used by hybrids, birds altered nesting patterns, and small mammals learned to navigate safer paths. The robotic rabbits acted as mediators of knowledge, allowing scientists to understand the interconnectedness of the Everglades ecosystem. Controlling the pythons was no longer just about removal, it was about restoring ecological balance. Even as successes mounted, breeding season remained a critical challenge. Hybrid females were mobile, elusive, and extremely protective of their eggs. The robotic rabbits, now equipped with advanced heat sensors, were able to locate hidden nests deep in marshland. Teams removed thousands of eggs, effectively reducing the potential future population of hybrids. For the first time, the human side was no longer just reacting, they were shaping the next generation of python populations. The AI-enhanced robotic rabbits began predicting python behavior with unprecedented accuracy. They could forecast strike probability, favor hunting zones, and even escape routes. This predictive modeling changed everything. Hunters no longer wandered blindly into the swamp. They could plan with precision, focusing resources where snakes were most active. The Everglades, once mysterious and overwhelming, was finally becoming readable, a controlled, observable environment instead of an untouchable wilderness. The robotic rabbits were no longer just machines, they had become partners in conservation. Hunters learned to read their signals. Scientists adjusted strategies based on the data. Even local communities began to understand that this was technology working in tandem with nature, not against it. The Everglades, under constant threat, was slowly regaining its voice. Marsh rabbits returned. Birds nested once more. Native mammals began repopulating cleared zones. Months of observation led to the final encounter. The largest hybrid python, tracked continuously by robotic rabbits, approached a known nesting area. The team used coordinated drones, scent dogs, and decoys to contain it. The footage captured the full strategy of the snake, its movements, strikes, and escapes, but humans were always one step ahead. For the first time in decades, scientists felt they understood the predator fully, turning fear into knowledge, and chaos into control.